I hear that you're a big frameworks person, and one that you dropped is one that I went down a Wikipedia rabbit hole last night on this one. It's the Helmer Seven Powers, but like, I need you to help me out here because it sounds like it's your strategic spirit animal. And I'm not going to ask you to name like all seven on the spot or anything like that. But what is this framework? Because I've heard it tossed around a bunch of times.
So I first started engaging with it because I'm a longtime Acquired podcast listener.
Yeah.
And at the end, right, of every section, they go into like, what are the seven powers? And so I bought the book and did the reading and just kind of thought through it more of like, what are our powers at DBT and how do you think about it relative to some of your partners and competitors in the market? Kind of co-opetition being, I think, the standard as you reach a certain scale. And so the things that maybe my favorite ones in there's some of the obvious ones like scale economies, network economies. Scale economies you'll only really have if you've already won and created power in a whole bunch of other different categories. The ones that I think about a lot are counter positioning and switching costs. Counter positioning kind of being, I think, a lot of actually where DBT has a lot of power. You could argue some network as well from our sort of the breadth of our open source community. But I think that the counter positioning one is really interesting because what we do is like allow you to operate across multiple data warehouses and BI tools, kind of bring your logic into a central layer. And that means that the value that we offer is different because we could help you spend less on BI or your warehouses or migrations. And so we're kind of on a different value driver of a lot of our partners, which makes it so that you're not going head to head with them a lot, right? You actually do offer kind of a novel business proposition, particularly to people with more complex data stacks. And I think that works very well for us as we continue to scale. And even as some of those players have developed like homegrown solutions of transformations, people still kind of say, hey, you want to use this as an abstraction layer to operate across. So I think about counter positioning a lot. And I think about switching costs. The sector that we're in has been ruled by the switching costs and lock-in of data storage. And I think that's pretty actively disaggregating with everything that's happening with iceberg table formats, depending on how much time you spend in our space. But there's a lot happening on the storage front right now. And so switching costs is one of those power components of a lot of the incumbents that I think is disaggregating and creates interesting opportunities around the market.
The counter positioning one is really cool. It brings me back to something that Mike Maples from Floodgate said, and it's forcing customers to like basically pick a side or to like, I think he says force a choice rather than a comparison. And so to that point, it's like, it's hard for them to compete head on if you're like, no, we're kind of like this other thing over here with this other angle.
You're definitely right. It is forcing a choice, right? Like, where do you want the stickiest piece of your stack to be? It's kind of a function of like customer trust, right? Like if this is my stickiest point, what does that mean for everything surrounding it? And it is actually, sometimes customers get to make that choice if there's someone who can give them interoperability. And sometimes it just is a default of sort of the tools that are available that one is stickier than another.
Yeah. Do you think that there's one power that beats all the others here? This is kind of like the old superhero adage. Would you rather like fly or be able to breathe underwater?
Yeah. I think scale economies is really hard to beat.
Run the Numbers is a mostly LLC production. Yelling an intro by Fat Joe. Artwork by some AI thingamajig. Podcast and video editing is done by Cleancast at cleancast.io. Nothing said on this podcast is intended to be business or investment advice. It's the sole opinion of me, a guy who feeds his dog too much ice cream and has a history of net operating losses, LOL. If you like this podcast, please hit subscribe. It would mean a lot to me. And also check out mostlymetrics.com. That's my newsletter where I explore business models and financial metrics. Thanks for riding with me. Share this with your friends. Peace.